yes. So please remember this. And the pessimist can never talk about good things. That's the problem with pessimism. And you may question why I am a pessimist. We'll deal with that if you think that you need to question me. So the question, the idea that we are going to discuss today is not going to make you feel good. Honestly. It is not going to make you feel good, and I am not here to make you feel good. If through this discussion or discourse that I am going to present today, if I can irritate you, if I can provoke you, if I can make you angry, my goodness, I think that I have achieved my purpose. That's what a pessimist is for. To paint a picture which is so bleak that the audience will feel miserable and hope that, come on, why did Nimesh sir call this fellow? We had such wonderful image and positive dimensions within ourselves, and here is someone coming from the humanities and saying that, as Horatio says in Shakespeare's Hamlet, things are rotten in the state of Denmark. That is the statement that really unravels the whole tragedy of Hamlet. So, and I would love to hear your anger after I finish. I would love to hear how much of irritated you are. Or maybe some of us might think, oh, come on, no matter what, this man makes some sense of what he says. That also is acceptable to me. But I want your sincere reaction to what I say. So I'll begin with this scenario that if you ask me what is the most fundamental issue, that is that this present world is confronting, you may have your own answers, and then we'll question each other. I would say is the issue of survival. What it means to exist in this universe, and how do I survive in this universe? And I don't think, now again, this is something highly debatable, that's why I'll be making some statements which will be provocative so that it generates a sense of discussions among us or thought among us. If you look into the human history, civilization or anything, whether you talk about development or any issue, the most fundamental deep structure of any existence is, how do I survive? And I, as a humanities student, can never think of any other issue that has become so fundamental to human existence. Nothing can be more fundamental to human existence than the notion of survival. At this age, you may not reflect upon it. But a time comes when this becomes the most significant. Now, how do I say this? What is the basis? Because every statement that one makes has to be validated by certain facts or evidences. If you look at the present world, read the present world. Reading means observing. When I say read, I mean observe. If you read the present world, what I find is, I find the present world obsessed with this idea of survival. And where do they manifest that? Look at the television serials. It's all about survival. Whether you are attempting to survive from the zombies, whether you are attempting to survive from certain viruses, whether you are attempting to survive from other species encroaching upon our species. I love to watch movies. I don't know how many of you are movie lovers. recently, not recently, the movie was a year or a couple back, if you remember, there was a movie called Annihilation, if anyone has watched. Again, the whole issue is, how do we humans survive? So at the deep structural level, the moment any species, because you are development people, you are also involved in environmental issues and sustainable development. So we cannot only talk about human species. So any species that comes into this world, the fundamental principle is, how do I live till the time I leave this world? That's the fundamental. So that gets manifested in, if you look at it at the television serials, look at the number of books. What do you think at the deep structural level, books that come to us in the form of self-help, what does that mean? What is it trying to convey? Is it just trying to say, oh, you can achieve? No, at the deep structural level, there is a tremendous crisis, and that crisis can be millions of books are sold. One of the biggest market is the market of self-help. Whether you want to beat your depression, okay, go for yoga, go for meditation. Look at the number of books, look at the number of TV serials, and look at the movies, my goodness, the dystopian movies. Every movie is talking about the disaster. How many of us watched Avengers? Yes, what is it about? As a student of humanities, I'll say, my goodness, that's a movie which is trying or attempting, how can humanity and the world survive? Is there any other concern of the movie? I don't see anything else. So at one level, it seems as if survival has become the fundamental principle that drives any species. And it's not us that we are experiencing. Whether you talk about Darwin, that's the man who came up with this theory of selection and rejection and natural selection and the concept of survival of the fittest, which of course is attributed to, that concept is not attributed to Darwin but to Herbert Spencer, who coined this expression, but brilliantly he says, yes, it's all about survival. So the question is, this notion of survival has entered deep into our psyche, and it has become so pervasive that at times we miss it. Because something, when it becomes so obvious, what happens is you don't see it. When it becomes so obvious, you don't see it. There's a wonderful expression in visual culture, because I'll be jumping disciplines. I'll be talking about visual culture, I'll be talking about movies, I'll be talking about mythologies, I'll try to talk about development, which is your area, and there you can question me. The issue is all the time, what we are trying to do is, yes, how do I make sense? So it has become so pervasive. There is a saying in visual culture, it says, visual culture is everywhere, that's why it's nowhere. Because when something is everywhere, you don't see it. It becomes so obvious that we fail to acknowledge its presence. So where does in this concept of survival, where do we locate this notion of globalization or development? That is our concern. And how will a humanities students look into these issues and identify the problem? Your reading of development will be totally different from our reading of development. Totally different. And the good thing in academics is, if we are open to other vantage points. Vantage points means different locations. Again, let me bring in a movie. How many of us, I'm a movie lover, how many of us have watched the movie called Vantage Point? No. You'll be surprised that how a single object makes so much difference when we are looking from different vantage positions. Like this room is different from, it is a room, all of us are here, but my vantage point will have a different reading of this room. Your vantage point will have a different reading of the text is the same, but why do we have these differences? So that lens is, so we need to, as development students also, one of the advices that we give is to any disciplines. Even I'm a management student, I'm a humanities student, yet I like to see what the world of management is like. I like to see what the world of development is like. So where do we put this whole notion? And we have trivialized the concept of development. Honestly, if you ask me, we have trivialized the notion of globalization, the notion of development. The element of seriousness which is demanded on the part of the understanding of this concept of development or globalization is to a great extent absent. That is what I feel. But let's see what globalization and development are. I will say, my goodness, this whole notion of globalization and development has created havoc. You may disagree with that, and you have every right, that it has more than assisting, because I said I am a pessimist, more than assisting, it has created turbulence over these. But I equally admit that there are two things that this development, notion of development and globalization has given to us. One, it has challenged us, it has created havoc, but equally it has provided opportunities to nations and individuals. I don't disagree with that. So I look into this notion of globalization or development as a humanities student from that particular lens, that it has created trouble, tremendous trouble, yet it has provided opportunities to. Let us see what the world that we lived in. We are fortunate lot. Why, you know? Because we have seen the earlier world and we have seen this world. None of you, I think, were born before the 90s. No, the world, if you ask me, before the 90s was such a wonderful world. Why is it was a wonderful world? Because people and nations could confine themselves within a geographical location and feel happy. Because I didn't know anything. The luxury of ignorance, wow. The luxury of ignorance is amazing, and the problem is you people are denied that luxury. You don't have the luxury of ignorance. Because at the click of the finger, you have all the information in front of you. So that's a tragedy, I would say. So the luxury of ignorance is, it's an amazing, blissful experience. When I don't know, when I don't see. So that is denied because globalization is a phenomena post-90s. It's not that people did not migrate, that people did not trade, there were trades and other things. But the intensity of relationships between and among the distant locations of the world is a post-90 phenomenon. We know what is happening in the Arctic. We know what is happening in the Antarctic. We know what is happening in the Cape of Horn. We know what is happening in Bermuda Triangle and everywhere. So that is something that has made. So how do I read the world? Today's world, I read it as hostile. I read it as pretty hostile. I read it as pretty brutal also. Now you can question me later on, but is always important. But I also see it as highly competitive and highly liberating. Where is the liberation? We are now liberated from the constraint of time. Things do not stop after sunset. Everything came to an end after the sunset. महाभारत को त्यत्रो लडाईमा पनि के थियो, सूर्य उदयसी लडाई लडा, अस्त भएसी. That was the norm. So today's world has been liberated from the element of the constraint of time. Today's world has been liberated from the constraint of space. Post 90s, we were confined. Technology was not there. Transportation and communication was pretty limited. So that also has been taken care of. Equally taken care of, liberating is the choice. What do you want to eat? What kind of ice cream do you want to eat? Andes? Baskin Robbins, or Australia, or Dubai, or what more. So the choice also, at our time, the choice was not there. Eat it or leave it. Today, I can make choices. So one of the best things that I see, although being, as I said, a pessimist, is, my goodness, how much of liberation this generation has been able to experience. And mind you, this is not something, and there is where the visionaries come. And we'll talk about the visionaries later on. It was Karl Marx, almost 150, 60 years ago. I don't know whether you read Karl Marx or not. But you don't have to be a communist to read Karl Marx, mind you. You have to read Karl Marx because this fellow has a different vantage point, lens, to read a society. And such an anti-capitalist. Here is a man who says, what will happen in 150, 160 years later? That's a vision, that's a visionary. He says, and I quote, and he's not using the word globalization because the term has been coined most recently. What he's trying to see is the expansion of the market and the expansion of the capital. He says it means this whole notion of globalization, development concept, it must nestle everywhere. It must be everywhere. Settle everywhere and establish connections everywhere. Don't you think that 150, 60 years ago, here is a man who would see what globalization would be like, or what the market economy would be like in 150, 60 years ago. So what we see is, what was he attempting to say then? That he was trying to predict an empire without ends. Today the world never ends, if you look at it. National geographies might end, but the world as such does not end. We are living in a world without horizons. So globalization, one of the things that I reflect upon again and again on this is that we are living in a world without, yes, but not everyone accepts it. Again, if survival is one of the fundamental principles of existence, one of the concepts that has been contested in contemporary times the most is the notion of globalization. And you have people shouting at one another from the two sides of the aisle. On one side you have people who say, come on, you are terrible. Whole notion, if you remember the whole notion of the 1%ers versus the 99ers. Heard of this concept? Where 1%ers, the concept is this, 1%ers versus the 99ers. Where 1% of the total population controls almost 80-90% of the human and natural resources. That's a big debate. And there are people who say, oh come on, you are whiners, you are just crying lot, who cannot do something and are jealous of what some people have achieved. You must have watched Hunger Games. Yes. That movie is all about, you can read it as 1%ers versus the. So it's one of the most contested concepts in contemporary times. If survival is one of the fundamental principles governing our existence, one of the most contested concepts which got hooked up with the issue of survival is globalization. And I don't know what you will say, but I will say that whole notion of development has been dictated and directed by the Western model. It is the West that determines and defines what constitutes development and what are the indicators or parameters of the concepts of development. And there are people like Vandana Shiva, if you have heard of this woman who is so fiery woman in that sense, an environmentalist, and she talks so much about sustainable development and other things. She says in one place that this has become an ideology of the West, the ideology of the West. And she says, and what is the nature of this ideology? The notion of development. Again, you are students of development, so think over it. He says that development ideology is all about the powerful imposing its will upon the poorer nations. That's how development she perceives. The ideology of development is how the powerful imposes its ideology upon the poor this thing. So what we have seen is never in the history of human civilization has market expansion and market deepening doing vertical as well as horizontal. Geographically and deep down it has penetrated into every nation. And that's the Western model. Let us debate. Why I say this is that we still do not have, and you can question me on that, we still do not have a credible Asian model of development. I don't know what you think about it. We still do not have a credible, I would use the word credible or alternative model of this thing, development. So, okay, what is the scenario? You are at the level of what is the model? Your psyche in you, and you can observe this on this thing. Pretty simple. We are more comfortable. We are more comfortable with Beyonce and Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift than with Indira Joshi. How many of us have heard this name?
Yeah.
Not all.
Or Bhima Kumari Dura.
So that is the point. Deep psyche is that we may not be consciously doing it. How many of us, we plug our ears, how many of us listen to Nepali songs? My goodness, you surprised me. And that's something to think over. Do you really listen to Nepali music?
Yeah, Nepali pop songs.
You are an exception. You are an exception, so maybe you'll have some pretty difficult questions for me. So, how do we address it? What do we do with this globalization? This monster? Means, I personally feel this is a monster which is so difficult to handle, to control. So the question that we can ask ourselves is, Do we bang our head and bleed? Or do we use our head and ride the monster to our desired direction? You cannot tame the monster, but you can tickle the monster. If you cannot tame, the best way is to tickle, make it happy, and achieve your desired goal. And that is what nations have done. And as I said right at the beginning, it has invited trouble, tremendous. It has totally destroyed nations. But it has built nations. Look at the examples of Southeast Asian nations. The moment they embraced this whole Western model of, question me, Western model of development, South Korea, which was poorer than Nepal 50 years back, is now one of the richest nations on earth. Look at Taiwan. Look at Singapore. Look at Cambodia and Vietnam. Totally destroyed nations. Now they are emerging as wonderful, powerful, distinct nations. So the question that I ask myself, and it is for us to reflect upon, is where does Nepal stand in this whole discourse of development and in the discourse of globalization? Have we ever seriously given a thought that, my goodness, nations are flourishing and nations are destroyed by this globalization? Does Nepal have a sustained, this is my question to you, does Nepal have a sustained view of the notion of development and globalization? Now it is for you to answer. My answer is no. And my answer is equally pessimistic because I think Nepal is incapable. Now I'm questioning you people. Not only does it not have, not having is something else, but being incapable of even reflecting upon the notion of globalization. That is what I think. So I am questioning your discipline. I am saying what you are studying will make no sense to the nation. Mind you, this is a big accusation, and I hope you will question me on that. Now, why do I say this? Because I am a student of the humanities. That is one thing. Because I am a student of mythology, I want to connect this with this lens of mine. Why I think Nepal is incapable of even reflecting upon the notion of development. What makes me think so? And why am I so pessimist about my own country? Because the answer is pretty simple. Because I am a student of mythology. Because I am a student of stories. Because I am a student who believes in heroes. Because I am a student who believes in leaders. Because I believe in the intrinsic worth of the human value, which I find missing. Why do I say this? Let me give you some concrete examples which you know that. And as I said, why I think so? I take it from Hamlet's line that things are rotten in the state of Denmark. And I say things are rotten in the state of Nepal. Why? We all know Kulman Gising. See, we all know. What if I question that man? Don't be angry. I say this, that Nepal is rotten, because when I see people celebrating Kulman Gising, it might surprise you. And the question that I ask myself and to you is, do we really need to celebrate Kulman Gising and transform him into a hero of mythic dimension? We even heard as a hero. Why? Because he is doing what he is supposed to do. Come on. So what does that show? It shows the poverty of honesty in this nation. That you get one Ulman hissing, and my goodness, you think here is a man who can transform the. That is poverty of honesty. Nothing more. I would rather appreciate Anuradha Koirala and Pushpa Bosnet, because they are doing what they are not supposed to do. Mind you, don't take it literally. Kulman is doing what he is supposed to. If I as a teacher, I teach honestly, I am regular, do you say, wow, what a teacher this fellow is. That is making the Prime Minister and everything. That is poverty of thought. That's poverty of thought. So we are so desperate. That element of desperation forces us to cling to even one small act of a good deed. That's poverty. So, the drought, the scarcity of honest people, when we have this, we have a society which is diseased. And disease does not only mean physical ailment. It's all about. Even corruption is a disease. So I would say why I say Nepal is a rotten, and why I have such a pathetic view of this country. This is my country, yet I have such a bleak view of this country. Why I say that Nepal is rotten or a diseased country, and I emphasize the word diseased. I think we are a diseased nation because we cling to people like Kulman Gising, who lights our lights. He lights our lights, and we hope he will tap our waters. He will water our taps, he will water our taps. I think we are a diseased people. Again, this might surprise you, and some of you might also be engaged in that, when we make a big carnivalesque celebration, cleaning of the Bagmati river, and we say, wow, look at this man called Lilamani Phode, who is cleaning the Bagmati. Well, good for him. He has now been promoted to the ambassador. But do you think that that is something to be celebrated? You know what? There were more than 125 NGOs, INGOs, organizations directly or indirectly involved with Clean Bagmati campaign. Millions of dollars have come here. And we celebrate every Saturday. What is the celebration about? You wear, whether Standard Chartered Bank t-shirt or Naval Bank, someone will sponsor in the name of corporate social responsibilities. You go there, have your gloves, wear the boots, take selfies, push them into the Facebook, and you call it cleaning the Bagmati. You pick up a lump of plastic, put it by the side of the river, which obviously next day will slip again down into the... How many weeks have gone? How many millions of dollars have been spent on Bagmati? And we say, wow, look at this man, Lilamani. He's so honest, and he has attempted to mount the unsurmountable, which is cleaning the Bagmati. We are diseased because shamelessly we bring money in the name of Chepangs, in the name of Dalits, in the name of minorities, and we become wealthy. Finally, I would say we are diseased Because an honest man, like, you may disagree, an honest man like Dr. Govinda Casey has to stake his life again and again and again for issues that are not at all issues. Do you think a man has to stake his life to say, please don't take too much fee from the students? Please don't pay bribe. My goodness, what kind of society we are living in? It's pathetic and it is painful. When this man, and the tragedy is, when this man has retreated, he has seen that there is no hope. And in the last of his, what was that? His satyagraha, or whatever you call it, he had to withdraw on his own because he realized that the society is diseased to such an extent that my death will make no impact on it. So why should I die? That's a big tragedy. When honest people lose hope, nothing can be more devastating than that. So that's why I say, and where is my connection with the humanities? I say, you know what? You will be saying, okay, this all boils down to management. We are not managing our resources properly. Let us allocate our resources. Let us look into it and have a pilot project and do this and that. I would say no. The biggest problem is we are a nation devoid of heroes. We are a nation devoid of leaders. We have politicians, but we don't have leaders and statements. We don't have mythologies. We don't have stories. Now, why do I say this is? Heroes, leaders, mythologies, and stories, what do they do is, they give us a sense of proportion which is so fundamental to the overall progress of a nation. If I ask you, these are heroes and leaders and mythologies and stories are the bonding factors. It's not money that brings in development. These people and these concepts and ideas are what really defines a nation. After thousands of years also Italy survives. You know why? Because it has such amazing stories of its own. America is consistently generating, yes, America is consistently creating new stories. Look at all the Avengers series. What is it trying to do? It is trying to create stories, mythologies that every nation, every person within the nation will identify himself or herself. Now, if I ask you, is there any hero? Ekta थियो न्याय नपाए गोर्खा जानु, that was pervasive. Why? Who was that king? No, Lamsal. I went there, and the tragedy was some political ideology was so irritated by that notion that they destroyed the image and dumped it down the cliff. You don't have is. Now, these things are what really define a nation. Mind you, we may not agree with that, but until and unless you have these defining people, Nepal is totally as absent. We don't have, give me one name which every Nepali national will be proud of. There is always a debate. कसैले पृथ्वीनारायण शाह भन्यो भने ओ त्यो त इम्पेरियलिस्ट हो, he is a colonizer, So until and unless, छुट्टी दिनते तो पनि बन्द भयो. So until and unless you have this unifying object, no nation can survive. No nation can survive until you create heroes. There's a wonderful incident that happened in New York, and that's why America is so bent upon creating heroes. There was this, in New York there is a place called Central Park. In the middle of that humongous city of millions, you have an amazing open space. Look at our open spaces. What have we done with that? So what happened there was, now this is something we need to reflect upon. What happened there was, a boy and a girl who were friends, means they were girlfriend boy. He took his girlfriend to Central Park, and strangely, and this was and this incident was read so much. Intriguingly, what he did was, a very well-to-do family people, both of them. He raped her and strangled her to death there. And he sat there. The police came, and the police, he did not run. He admitted the guilt, but the only thing he was saying is, I want to go home. That was the statement. He had a house. So Rollo May, this is an existential psychologist. I read this. He says, let me try to see why this happened. And he says that, you know what? The problem with America is it does not have heroes. It does not have mythologies. And when these mythologies are the foundation on which the whole edifice of nation building are built upon. Now why I say this is, there is a wonderful movie called The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. It's a black and white movie, very slow. But the intriguing thing about that movie was, my goodness, what is really development can be understood how we generate and create stories and legends. Development is not about people working on only. Development is about how people think about collaborating with one another and what makes them think. That's the point. And what makes them think is not how much money has come, but what is the story that connects us? What is the story that binds us? What is it that can inspire us? It may be totally false, but the stories are so powerful that even it can triumph over facts and truths. That's the power of stories. So The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is an amazing insight into what really is the fundamental principle that drives development of any society. How many of us watch The Simpsons? The Simpsons, one of the most watched television serials in American history. One of the episodes has Lisa Simpson finding the man that was being celebrated is actually a thief. And there is a heavy celebration. And that man's name was what was driving Springfield towards development. And she thinks that the question that haunts her is, highly sensitive little girl, should I tell the truth to the people that this is a thief? Why are you celebrating it? Or should I let the story continue and let the people be bonded by one concept? You know what? at the end of The Man Who Sought Liberty Valance, the reporter, he knows that, come on, this is not the man you are celebrating is not the real killer of who has liberated you, but there is someone else. So he asks a question to someone that, look, now that you know, do I print the legend or do I print the truth? Now if I ask you the same question, what will your answer be? Do you print a story
Listen.
or do you print the truth? That's the problem. That's the problem with us. That is when you do not see what really makes a society come together. Look, when legends and facts the truth, collide with one another, print the legend, not the fact. It might sound really ridiculous, but most societies are developed on the basis of legends, not on the basis of facts. No. If we do not have a fascination for stories, if we do not promote stories, no nation can survive. We have totally destroyed our heroes. We don't have any. We don't have stories that binds a nation. Tell me. Do we have mythologies that bind the whole nation? No. That's why we are a diseased nation. We are a nation of poverty. And what is the consequence of not having a unifying object? Let me tell you. We don't have this sense of proportion. What we really are, what really constitutes a Nepal and a Nepali? No. Our whole development projects are so isolated and so alienated from the national context that it can never make an impact. Can you imagine how much of money has been pumped in after post-90s into Nepal through NGOs and INGOs? Unimaginable. Unimaginable. But the element of development is still, it has not improved, in fact. So how do we explain that? We must explain it. And I will say that. Why is it happening? We are relentlessly pursuing the ideology of dismantlement. Not unification, but we are pursuing the ideology of dismantlement. The ideology of fragmentation. And the same thing can be reflected in the approach to development also. Why are we doing so? Because we don't have heroes, because we don't have mythology, because we don't have stories that bring together and say, okay, Mechima euta baseko manchele Mahakaliko mancheko sense lai pani bujhna sakoस्. You'll be surprised that far western region almost has no relationship with the center. It has more relationship with India because there is nothing unifying that can make them feel that I belong to this nation. And it seems that W.B. Yeats has brilliantly come up with a line in one of his poems when he says, the center no longer holds. There is no center. And unless you have a center, you cannot achieve anything. You need a center. And centers are created by the heroes, by the stories, by the visionaries, by these mythologies. So the center does not hold any more. And so, survive we will do. No moranjal samudha bachinja. But survival does not only means living. Survival means living with dignity. That's the problem. And I was reflecting upon, because Nimesh told me that, okay, let me think over it, and I was reflecting upon what has development, how do development people reflect upon the definition of development. In one place I said that, so the question is, as we said, if you ask me, we have totally destroyed our heritages. And nations that do not have an understanding and respect for history are condemned nations, are doomed nations. If you do not have a sense of history, you are doomed, you are condemned. That's what I feel about this country. Kasto mazale bhancha ke, and I want to read something. This fellow reflects and says, what do we mean by development? He says, development implies, he says, intentional social change. Intentional social change in accordance with societal objectives. Intentional social change in accordance with societal objectives or organized. The most disorganized approach to development can be found in the whole world. Nepal, I think, ranks among the topmost nations where the notion of development is the most disorganized. And we could not digest it because it pushed us to such a situation, and it revealed us and made us so naked that we had to ban it. So, organized intervention in collective affairs, that's another. Personally, we say is, we are unable. That's why I said, Nepal cannot even imagine of talking about development. We have not been able to acknowledge or identify our societal objectives. Societal objectives, what is it? Don't just tell me that, oh, that is not something that is acceptable. You can say that, but that's not acceptable. So we have not been able to acknowledge or identify our societal objectives, and we have no idea at all what it means by organized intervention. My goodness, development is about organized intervention. Tell me, where is this organized intervention? Millions of dollars are coming here. Where is it? No. That is the tragedy of this nation. Now let me end with a book. This is an amazing book called Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Paton, written almost 70 years ago. 70 years ago, this man wrote, and the context is Africa, South Africa, not Africa is a continent. The context is South Africa. Let me read it and then get your reaction to it. Just listen to it. Whether this man was writing for South Africa in the 1940s or is writing for us in 2019. Just the first page of this book and the end. There is a lovely road that runs from Jopo, from Jopo into the hills. These hills are grass covered and rolling, and they are lovely beyond any singing of it. The road climbs 7 miles into them, into Carisbrook, And from there, if there is no mist, you look down on one of the fairest valleys of Africa. About you there is grass and bracken, and you may hear the forlorn crying of the titi. Oh, it's a bird. One of the birds of the veldt. Below you is the valley of the Umzimkulu, on its journey from Drakensberg to the sea, and behind the river, great hill after great hill, and behind them, the mountains of Ignali and East Wakeland. The grass is rich and matted, and you can see the soil. It holds the rain and the mist, and they seep into the ground, feeding the streams in every kloof. It is well tended, and not too many cattle feed upon it. Not too many fires burn it, laying bare the soil. Stand unshod upon it, without shoes upon it, for the ground is holy, sacred, being even as it came from the Creator. Keep it, guard, keep it. Now listen to this. Keep it, guard it, care for it. For it cares men, guards men. For it keeps men, guards men, cares for men. Destroy it, and man is destroyed. The text continues, 2 more paragraphs. When you stand, the grass is rich and matted. You cannot see the soil, but the rich green hills break down. They fall to the valley below, and falling change their nature. For they grow red and bare. They cannot hold the rain and mist, and the streams are dry in the kloofs. Too many cattle feed upon the grass, and too many fires have burnt it. Stand shod upon it, for it is coarse and sharp, and the stones cut under the feet. It is not kept, or guarded, or cared for. It no longer keeps men, guards men, cares for men. The Titihoya does not cry here anymore. Now the final paragraph. The great hills stand desolate, and the earth has torn away like flesh. The lightning flashes over them, the clouds pour down upon them, the dead streams come to life full of red blood of the earth. Down in the valleys, women scratch the soil that is left. The maize hardly reaches the height of a man. There are valleys of old men and old women, of mothers and children. The men are away, the young men and the girls are away. The soil cannot keep them anymore. 70 years ago, this man had seen when a nation cannot keep its young, and when the nation only has, I don't know how many of you come from villages. My village is just 58 kilometers from Pokhara. And it's such a beautiful place. But all we have there are old men, old women, and children. The young men, the young girls, they are no longer there. Why? Because the soil has been destroyed. The soil means the essence of the nation has been destroyed to such extent that every day from Tribhuvan International Airport, legally, you'll be surprised to think how much of illegal work goes on. Legally, around 2,000 plus young men and women leave this country. And we talk about development? Come on. How can I be positive? So think over these issues. And I don't know whether I have made you feel good or miserable, but I'm ready to defend my... Yes.
What is the name of that book?
The name of the book is Cry the Beloved Country. It's an amazing book. What is really needed in a society if it has to sustain itself? If it has to bring together people of diverse, highly racist, racial context, okay? The blacks and the whites. Same is here. We have diverted, we have fragmented, dismantled the nation to such an extent that we cannot identify with people from the Tarai or with people from the hills or with people from the western part of Nepal or with the eastern part of Nepal. We have isolated. That's why I say the ideology of dismantlement is at work in this country. We don't know what we speak. Sabdani Brahma ho Vansa. And look at our politicians speaking. My goodness, they look insane. When you listen, they are insane people. And we are governed by these people. And we talk about development and we talk about hope. How can we, at least me, know? I don't know what you think. Every day I walk for almost an hour before I reach Ratnaraji campus where I teach. Every day I see hundreds of people standing outside the American embassy, just with the hope, if I can get a visa, I can sneak out and leave this place. Maybe some of you also have that intent. Nothing wrong. Because a nation which does not have anything to offer, mind you, I don't believe in that very lofty idea is, oh, don't ask what the nation has given to you, ask what you have given. Come on. That's rubbish. There must be something within this nation that must tempt you, that must lure you to stay here. Otherwise, why don't you stay? As plain and simple as that. I don't know what you think. If you are an ultra-nationalist, good for you. So our idea is, please don't confine yourself to development studies only. Because these are disciplines which are so new, the discourses, and they take all from different locations. There's someone, I forgot the name of that person, he says, wonderfully he says, the poet and the prophet can do without an economist. We don't care. But an economist cannot do without a poet and a prophet. And this is an economist who is saying, not a philosopher. He says we have to be watchful about the poet, what the poets say. We have to be watchful about what the prophets are saying. And on the basis of that, we need to look into what is it that can help me achieve the desired objectives of development. You cannot lump development. You cannot impose development as Vandana Shiva says. It has to be accepted. And that acceptance comes when you read the social context in which you are exhausting your energy or your money. We think we are the messiah of development. We fly, we distribute, we come back, and we celebrate. My goodness. That's what I feel. So, does it make you angry?
No.
Does it irritate you? Does it make you think? It's up to you. But again and again we say, there are so many different shades. Well, you must have watched 50 Shades of Grey. So it's not only black and white. My goodness, 50 shades. The range of knowledge is amazing. And something, these stories are which captures this, gives us a sense of proportion of who we really are. And you know what? Nowadays, every discipline is using these stories. Whether it is the management, they think that facts and figures narrated through stories are remembered better. Medical science, you know what dementia? Medical science they found that the most difficult patients are the patients with dementia. Well, they are the most irritating in the sense because, and it's not their fault. So what they found was doctors who are treating dementia patients are pretty, the element of compassion is missing. And you'll be surprised in universities like Johns Hopkins, which is one of the finest universities in the world when it comes to medical science. They are experimenting, they are saying, they are bringing these doctors, narrating them stories. Because these stories are what are making them more compassionate. They don't see the patient as an object, which is what development's biggest problem is. We think that's an object where we go and rectify the problems there. And what has been found was these stories, when they listened to these stories, they found that the treatment towards these dementia patients was more compassionate after a session of the stories. How many of you read stories? I don't know. But read stories to become a better individual. Einstein ने बड़ा brilliantly बने. He says in one place, if any individual wants to be intelligent, now this is a scientist saying, not a humanities thinker. If you want to be intelligent, read fairy tales. Amazing, right? Once upon a time. And if you want to be more intelligent, read more fairy tales. That's Einstein saying, a man who has been acknowledged as the biggest brain of the 20th century, says you can be intelligent if you read stories, fairy tales. So along with your development, which is dry, I don't see much value in this whole saying, go there and see what are the problems and try to see, make a log, do this, second is this, stage third, come on, that's so dull and boring. We turn it into a narrative. And narratives are far more powerful and acceptable. That's why in economics also you must be reading terms like narrative economics. Come on, what is that? Terms like behavioral economics. And people, you know what? There are books saying Shakespeare for students of economics. What has Shakespeare got to do with economics? But there are credible books teaching, saying Shakespeare for management people, students. What can Shakespearean plays teach? Students of management. What has Shakespeare to say about money matters? Those are the things. So, expand yourself vertically and horizontally also. Don't expand yourself physically. Because knowledge constitutes those two components. Your area of concern, which is development studies, and along with that, what other disciplines can teach me? How other disciplines can enhance my understanding and reading of the notion of development. Like, what is the purpose of reading this book's first page? Because I thought, we talk about development and look at what is happening to our young people who are the real contributor to the notion of development. Okay, I don't want to talk anymore. Yes.
So you said about people celebrating Pullman leasing just because he was honest and doing his job. But then again...
No, but I want to remove the word just. I said, we don't need to say, we should appreciate. Okay, now your question.
But then again you said on the other side, or Govinda Kesi, how he has lost. I mean, he got demotivated because being honest, with honest people, how he lost hope. Then don't you think if we celebrate honest people, other people will be motivated to be doing their jobs more honestly?
I don't disagree with what you are saying, but my only concern is I want to distinguish between what Kulman Gising is doing and what Pushpa Basnet, and maybe that will help us understand better. We don't celebrate Anuradha Koirala and Pushpa Basnet as much as we talk about Kulman Gising. That is my only concern. Because, see, when it comes to heroism, what is far more important is there an element of sacrifice involved in that action or not? That is what should be the distinguishing feature. There is no idea of sacrifice in the part of Kulman Gising, except when you say, oh my goodness, he is sacrificing millions of rupees that he could have got if he had continued with the earlier project. But what is Pushpa Basnet getting? She could have married, lived a wonderful life. And I am not surprised that at least CNN called them heroes, but we, Nepal, is still to acknowledge. हमने के मतलब कुलमान घिसिङलाई प्रधानमन्त्री बनाऊ, अनुराधा कोइरालाले के गरेर दुई चार जनालाई समातेर लिएर आयो. My goodness, the element of sacrifice, the selfless sacrifice. Kulman is getting a salary. This one, the मलाई पनि you should appreciate. I would say you should appreciate it, and you should appreciate yourself. Oh my goodness, we are coming here at 6 o'clock. So you have to be watchful about it. That is my only concern. And it's a tragedy when a person like Dr. Casey has to retreat. I don't disagree with what you are saying. The poverty of honesty. We just have to cling to. For almost 3 years, we are clinging to Kulman Gising. And we are afraid, my goodness, what if this fellow goes, I'll be in dark again. Oh my God, where is the legacy? History demands a legacy. We don't have that. That's my only concern. I have nothing against, what was that? Paudel? I have nothing against Kulman. Yes.
Sorry, give this phrase of luxury of ignorance that you have. I really like the phrase. I wish I had that right now. But then, don't you think that because of that luxury of ignorance that older generation had, we are in the phase where we are right now? Like the.
How much do you listen to people like me who paint such a bleak picture? Tell me. I'm confident, I'm sure that all of them come here and tell you, wow, nation is doing this. Look how we have been doing this. I'm not saying that we should remain ignorant. The two dimension is something so blissful for us. I just want to forget all these things and go back into the past, because I know people who ignore their pasts, people who do not read their history properly are condemned to experience that again and again and again.
Professor Sharma, I just want to contribute a few words because you have already lived your life.
No, I still have.
Already experienced a lot in this world, but we people here, we have certain dreams. We want to get out of this pessimism and develop this nation. So you say that you want to go back to the past, but we want to go to the future, making our present happy. And I'm quite in the same place as you are about narratives and stories. Yes, there was Prithvinarayan Saha. There was something that bounded our nation in the past, and we don't have that unifying heroes or unifying factors at present. So what could be the solution? Where should these scholars?
See, this is the problem with your question. You are asking for a solution from a man who is a pessimist. But let me give you an answer to this. I am not saying that we should not have, as you said, we don't want to dwell upon the past, but we want to move into the future. But let me tell you honestly, you cannot achieve anything in future if you are not aware of your past. Never. Let me give you a burning example. I hope we still have some time.
Not so much.
Okay, 1 minute. Let us look at the example of America. You know what was American definition of America at the beginning? Americans said, who is an American? This is a question that a French raised and gave an answer. He said, an American is someone who has cut his ties with the past and has nothing to do with the past. That is what America is. And they came up with the concept of melting pot. You come from different cultures and you lump into one location and then you become a new American. That's why Rollo May said, that existential psychology said that the problem is you have disconnected yourself with the past, means you have disconnected yourself with the mythologies, with the stories, with the heroes from where you come. And that is what created a crisis. And now, America does not talk about cutting your ties with the past. America is now talking about cultural plurality and celebrating the cultural roots. And when you talk about roots, what are roots? Roots are the past. So if you deny your past and think that you can achieve a better future,
Wouldn't that cultural diversity be a unifying matter for?
It should be.
In Nepal also.
No, it can be is a different question. But it is not right now. That is what I feel. That's why I say the problem is this dismantlement ideology that we have embraced can never take us into future. I'm sorry, I painted a bleak picture, but I am insistent upon the fact that if we are not aware of our past, we can never work in the present to make our future better. Never. That's my conviction. Forgetting the past and saying that I'll build my future, no nation has been able to do that. America could talk about it for just 2 decades, and after 2 decades it had to reject and say, oh my goodness, our nation is a nation of migrants. Whatever Trump says is one thing. But ultimately, deep down, he knows he has his roots somewhere else. So until and unless we are aware of that root, which is the mythology, the root is the mythology of a nation, we cannot progress. So think over it, and maybe when we bump into one another as we move around, because I walk this region a lot, I stay in Galputar. I walked in the morning to this, so maybe when we bump into one another, even if I cannot recognize you as he has already said, because you've already lived your age, please make sure that you call me. I would be so happy to hear from you.
So any more questions or curiosities with Professor Sarkar?
Actually, the question that Nimesh is raising reminds me of one story.
Good that you are a narrator of story.
The story is about there was a lot of students and one guru was always giving the stories, telling the stories. So every time he tells the stories, so the students listen to the stories. And one day, one student asked him a question. You always keep telling the stories, but you don't tell us the meaning. That was what was the questions of the students to the guru, or to the teacher, to the instructor. And I will ask you, what will be the answer of the guru to the students? So why he is telling the stories and not the meanings? Because while you were asking the solutions to solve, so that reminds me of the stories.
Maybe because every student has their own perception, perspective.
That might be one of, because the moment you give the meaning of the story, what happens is you are not acknowledging the intelligence of the student. To end with this, Hemingway, the Nobel Prize winner, The Old Man and the Sea, you might have read, some of the best writing. You know what he says at one point? The same thing. It reminded me what Hemingway said. Hemingway was asked, why do you leave gaps and other things? Why don't you explain your ideas? He does not explain things, he just gives us. And this is the answer that he gave. He said that, look, if I give what I intend to say, then I am being disrespectful to the audience. I assume that the audience is equally intelligent and he or she will be able to make sense of the gaps that we, or as readers, we read in his writing. So that is respecting. So she write at one point that why should anyone give the meaning of it? We are not here to give
And
it.
he beautifully explains the meaning is, if I give you the fruit by chewing myself, will you get the nutrition or not?
No.
So
No.
that's the answer of the globe.
No. Beckett, another theatre of the absurd, he says, when he was asked, what is the meaning of your play? His plays are pretty absurd, called Waiting for Godot and all these things. Nothing happens in the play. We want the play to happen something, nothing happens. So when he was asked, what is the meaning of this play? You know what he said? That was a brilliant answer. He said, you know what? I would have told you if I knew. I also, if I knew the answer to my pessimism, and knew the answer to, then what should we do? I would have given it to you. And maybe other people who come and here talk about development, they may have some definite answers. I don't.
But every time it's like a second-hand answers, you know, because we.
No, your answer is your first-hand answer. My answer when you are taking is a second-hand.
So we are taught more to live in the second-hand answers.
I would say so, which is wrong. That's why I said, I don't want to give, I want to make you angry. I don't want to make you feel good. I want you to think. If it provokes you, I'm happy, my purpose is served. I'm not here to tell us what is development and how we should go forward. No, that's not my duty. It's yours, because you have taken that responsibility. So find your own answer. That would be a better than being given an answer. So read all disciplines, watch movies, and see what insight they are really attempting to convey. Please.
You said there is lack of honesty in the country. What do you think is the reason behind that?
Okay. See, I'm not saying lack of honesty pervasive. I'm saying the problem arises when poverty of honesty is observed among and in those locations which matter the most. Which matter the most. I'm here to dishonest. Oh my goodness. That is not an issue at all, I would say. I would not call that man a dishonest man. No. There are people who matter at the highest level and who have taken up the responsibility of governance. If there you have this poverty of honesty, that is a problem. But that problem cannot be erased. So the question is, I don't see. When you have to generate certain structures. That's my answer. I'm not, again I would say, I'm insistent on the fact that we have a poverty of honesty. But I cannot give you an answer that how can we eradicate that. People to think on our own. Yes.
So what do you teach in your
The interesting thing is, I'm a BCom graduate, mind you. I did my BCom from Calcutta University, came here and shifted to education, did not like commerce, did not like education, moved into humanities, did my MA from Tribhuvan University, was fortunate enough, I admit that I'm not an intelligent fellow, but I was fortunate enough to get a Fulbright scholarship, and I was there for 5 years. I did my MA and PhD from there, and honestly, I teach everything.
So my question is, like, you call yourself pessimist, right? So,
Yes.
as a teacher, okay, as a student, from teachers we get hopes that we will do something better in future. So as a teacher and being a pessimist, what do you give to students? Do you give hope to do better, or
No, you know what?
give them, because we pay so much fees, and to get that we get for future we get hopes that something will go better in our life. But as a pessimist, what do you
No,
give
you know what?
to students?
I give you the opportunity, the luxury of ignorance, one is a state. I give you the luxury of pessimism. 99 of your teachers are all positive, optimist. So look at me also. And then you can curse me. Come on, this fellow, how pathetic this fellow is. But at least you are getting a taste of some different. That's the only thing. Only optimism So if I have been able to give you the luxury of pessimism, that also you should appreciate. You can hope from others. You can lose hope. And then think that when hope is lost, well, there was one fellow who at one point in time came and said that, okay, life is not only optimism, life has a pessimistic shade also. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed, and the only optimism is, I'm not making this, the only optimism is, for the first time I really enjoyed talking with people.
First time?
Yes!
Thank you.
That's the only hope. My goodness, you people seem to change me, and I don't want to change my.
But I think you are also optimistic in disguise.
Yes.
How you read? That is your reading. That is your reading.
Yes, sir.
That was actually, I wanted to interpret your session today. You are an optimist in disguise.
I got a new expression. Thank you so much for that.
Because throughout the session, we did not find any kind of pessimism in your talk and lecture. And I hope these development scholars who are so confident about their contribution in development of this nation or this world will find some solution in how they can discover the unifying element in developmental obstacles. So with this positive note, I will finally want to invite any one of you who want to express, acknowledge on behalf of this class and college to Professor Sharma. So we have Pratibha Panta, who is also the class representative of who? Pratibha Panta.
Thank you so much, sir. You gave different perspective to the things we look. It was the other side of the coin, and it was really interesting to get to know about those stuffs, and it was really triggering our thinking. On behalf of our whole class, I would really like to thank you from bottom of each of our heart. It was really, really pleasure to have you and listen to you.